Welcome to the Savvy Giving Gal podcast. I am your host, Melissa Torelli-Smith, and today we're chatting with Narda Skov. Narda is a health and sexuality educator. She works with teens in schools and in private groups discussing topics such as anatomy, bullying, body image, consent, contraception, healthy versus unhealthy relationships, HIV, STIs, media literacy, pornography, puberty, tobacco, drugs, and alcohol. Amazingly, she is also the program coordinator for the San Francisco-based nonprofit called the Wig Exchange. Their primary mission is to provide women undergoing chemotherapy with access to high-quality wigs. Narda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited you're here too. And I was laughing to myself thinking about how we know each other. And I distinctly remember when my son was in 5th grade and he was going to start puberty and all the things. And I gave him the book, you know how all moms do. We gave him the book. And I said, read the book. And when you're done reading the book, I'm going to come in and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about all these topics. So he's like, okay, I read the book, Mom. And so I go in the room and I sit down and I start talking and he is so uncomfortable. And I distinctly remember saying the word penis and all hell broke loose. He was like, this is so cringy. You can't talk about that with me. Like just freaking out. And in that moment, I kind of gave up. I'm like, he's so distraught and he just couldn't talk. So I said, we'll revisit this. And like all moms do, I went to all my friends and I'm like, I failed. You know, as a mom, he doesn't want to talk to me.
No.
I thought I built this line of communication. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, my kid didn't want to talk to me either. And one of my friends was like, you need Narda Skov. And I'm like, who? She's like, she taught my son and all his friends, and they just couldn't wait till she came back to teach them the next week. And I'm like, who is this Narda Skov? So I called you and you came and you taught my son for 3 years. Yes. And then you came back and have taught my daughter now in 6th grade last year for a year. And then I find out after we got chatting that you also do all this work with the Wig Exchange. Yeah. And I was just blown out of the water. I mean, just could not believe you. I mean, so today over our discussion, we are going to pull all the tips from Narda on how to add giving to your life and ways to make that easy. So if you could start, Narda, with like what inspired you to become a health and sexuality educator?
Well, first, I want to just say what an introduction and thank you. I really am so excited to be on this podcast and just that you are shining a light on the people that impact you, I think is a way to pay it forward as well. So just bravo to you.
Thank you.
So gosh, how did I start to become a health educator? I grew up in San Francisco and it was in the early 1980s and it was the beginning of the HIV epidemic. And by the time I graduated high school, and I was working in the fashion industry and so knew a lot of people in San Francisco, very, very large gay population. And I stopped counting the number of people I knew who had died of this brand new disease called HIV. It was terrifying. And so my aunt in New York was a doctor of sexuality. And so I said, I need to do something about this. Prevention is the way to go or the name of the game. That if we can prevent someone from getting something or making an unhealthy decision, that's where I want to be. And working with young people and getting to young people before they step into a risky situation, I think is key.
Yeah, I agree. But I just have to know how you are able to talk to these kids like you do. I was hiding underneath the counter every week, like listening, because it's supposed to be, a safe space so they can talk to you. And he was just telling you everything. His whole, all the boys, not just my son who felt comfortable, all the boys. So how do you do that? Where does that come from?
Well, I think the first thing is, I love young people. Yeah. I love them. I love the innocence, but I also love the earnestness of who they are and what they want. And everybody simply just wants to feel good in their bodies and understand those changes. So the first thing we do is I introduce myself, of course, and then we make a set of ground rules. But it's with those young people and what's going to make them feel safe. It's not a classroom. classroom. There's no homework, that this is for them. Nothing is off limits unless it's really personal. And then, we have to get other people involved. Like if somebody is hurting themselves or hurting someone else, that is absolutely off limits. But it is a safe space and that it is a confidential space, right? And parents will be notified if something, risky is happening or scary is happening, but this is really a safe space for them inside of the homes. And so it's really kind of a unique format, right? It's a little bit different than working in the classrooms because there, and I'm still a mandated reporter. So if anything is happening or if abuse is happening or anything like that in a school, it's very clear cut. But in these smaller private classes, those same rules exist, but there is a freedom there.
Yes.
And because they're single gender, it kind of gives it's even a larger sense of freedom, because every time I go into a classroom, they're like, do we have to do this in front of the boys? Do we have to do this in front of the girls? And so what's unique about them, I think they both work very well. And I think there's a huge value because these boys are going to have a sister or they're going to have a partner or they have a mom or they're going to have a baby one day and they're going to have to explain those changes as well. Yes. So it's important for everybody to learn. But there is a sense of comfort once I start answering their questions, and I'll sort of load the questions, with ones that I think are age and developmentally appropriate. Yes. And I'll say funny words like penis, and we'll yell it out loud. And of course, there's lots of giggles and things. And, we remind ourselves that there are certain behaviors and certain words that are private, that are really not to be yelled out in the classroom, right? Penis being one of them. And so I think that gives them the space like, oh, okay, she's willing to answer those questions and I'm not their parent. Right. And so it just creates a safer space and it's not going to be embarrassing. And it also normalizes all of those questions that they all have. Oh, I'm not the only one thinking that. Yes. Oh, phew. Right?
Yes. Yeah. I felt it was so important that they had, because he certainly wasn't talking to me, but when I stepped back and after hiring you, they were not doing a great job in the school, in my opinion, in the school, really educating them enough on these questions that they all certainly had, because I was under that counter listening and they had a lot of questions. And, with the onset now of them having social media earlier, even if your own kid doesn't have it. So my son didn't have it, but a lot of the boys had it. And it's the same with my daughter. She doesn't have it, but their friends have it. And so they're still exposed to that. And so they're learning a lot of this, maybe not the right things on social media. So how do you combat what they're learning and what they're seeing on social media when you do these kind of trainings?
That's a great question. And I think for parents who are parenting since 2008, since the first iPhones came out, it has drastically changed our world. I mean, think about it. In the past decade alone, marijuana has become legal. Gay marriage is legal. We have social media. We have the world at our fingertips, right? And no one has taught parents like, oh, these are the things to look out for. There are some great companies that, can guide parents. But when, these phones first came out, it was the world, it was like the Wild West. And parents were, parents were scrambling to keep up. But what I would say is that it is a new technology for all of us as parents. And that, I personally think that these phones and large media companies should have everything off when they sell it to you, and that it should be up to the parents to turn them on as they become, whatever age the parent has decided. Right. I personally think it should be 16. And, our Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, agrees, that it should be 16 because the brain has developed enough and youth are able to make those decisions in a critical way. But I think using those media literacy skills, which is, what is this message? Who's making it? What are they trying to sell me? What I do know is that most kids don't want to be manipulated. And so if you tell them, kind of like when we talk about tobacco, these big tobacco companies want to make you a lifelong customer. They are doing this to get you. and they want you to buy their product so that you will buy their product for the rest of your life because you will be addicted. It's the same thing with media. It's the same thing with all of those algorithms. And what is absolutely infuriating to me is that we have 11, 12, 13-year-old girls and boys who are somehow supposed to be able to monitor this algorithm that was built by these PhDs, in computer science. And I'm like, how is that an equal playing field? That just isn't.
It is not.
It isn't. Not. And so I think it's really, really difficult. And I do think the best way to combat all of that extra information is take breaks.
Yeah.
Put those boundaries on the phones and have conversations with your kids. Listen, here's what I want for you is I want you to make healthy decisions. I want them to come from a trusted source. And if you don't know the answer to something, it's not going to be on something that is trying to sell you something or trying to get you to click on something, because the more you click, the more money they make, and you are being used and you are being manipulated. So for young people, that's one strategy, right? But also just saying, hey, let's take a minute. Let's take a little sabbatical. So if it's a Friday night Shabbat and you have 24 hours off, or Sundays are no media or no, internet access, anything. And the parents also have to do that same exercise.
Oh, gosh. Then they're never going to do it.
Well,
but you're right.
But
you're
they
right.
may
you
or
have
may
to
not. So that you never want to be controlled by something else, that you want to be making those decisions. Doesn't mean that media is bad. We love our media. I love watching really interesting things or learning or seeing what my kids are doing or see what young people are doing or funny videos. Those are endlessly entertaining. The danger comes when we are trying to teach them something, or there are dangerous substances that we're trying to keep them away from. And so it doesn't mean that we'll forever, be keeping them in a cocoon or a bubble.
That's right.
It just means we as parents need to have some tools in our tool shed as well, or our toolbox to be able to push back and guide our kids in the way that is consistent with our family values.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it really, having my kids work with you and then chatting with you after, it's really opened my eyes to the power that I have to lead by example and provide information to the kids that they can use then to make healthier decisions in their lives. Yeah. So
can I just share one story?
I'd love for you to share a story.
I share this story all the time with parents. They, no matter what, if you have never talked about this subject before, or no one ever spoke to you as a parent before about sex or sexuality, I promise you, even if you bumble through those first few sentences and just say, I don't really know what I'm talking about right now, but I know that I'm supposed to do this as your parent. I just want you to know that I love you and I care about what decisions you make. And I might not have all the answers, but here is what I'm going to say to you. And it can be in the car, so you're not looking at them face to face, because that can be really difficult because it's a very vulnerable moment, right? I don't like to say cringy or anything like that, because I like to say, because we all have these emotions of feeling embarrassed, but what we never want is for our kids to feel shame.
Yes.
And we never, as parents, want to have our kids feel that shame around what could be a very private behavior. Yes. And there are different family values around, do you have sex before marriage? Do you have a boyfriend before you're 18 or a girlfriend before you're 18? Or do you get to go on a date alone at 14 or 16? So there's lots of different values around that, and that's up to the parents.
Right.
But the kids are always listening. And one of my favorite examples is in the classroom. I do an exercise, which is an agree, disagree. And so it's presenting them, and they're starting to think critically about these bigger decisions that have to do with their health. So I would be willing to try a puff of a cigarette, if my friend offered it. Agree, disagree. So they can begin to think, no, I don't think I would. Or maybe I would, because then I would know I hate it and I'll never try it again, right? So beginning those critical thinking skills. But my favorite question is, my parents think it's okay to have sex before marriage. And most of the questions that I ask, they either go to agree, disagree, and they feel very strongly. The majority of kids stand in the middle of the classroom and they say, I have no idea. And I say,
really?
I say, well, why not? And they say, my parents have never talked to me about that. Or my parents have never said. And then every now and again, I'll get a girl who says, oh, my dad, excuse me. My dad said, I can't have sex until he dies or until I'm at least 35 years old. And so what that says to me is that they are listening. And what they really want is guidance. Even if it's as simple as, I want you to wait until you find somebody you're in love with. That's enough. Or I want you to wait until you at least go to college. Those simple words are enough to have that child say, yes, my parents have said something to me, or my parents care about this, or just a little inkling of a value, right? That's what they need, right? Is to say, I'm part of a community. People care about me and care if I'm making these healthy decisions. And here's the start of how you make that healthy decision is, no, thanks. I'm okay. Or asking for consent. Is this okay? Just those simple things, but they are listening.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
they
it.
are listening.
I have to remember that.
Yes. They are always listening, right? And your son's going to remember, like, my mom tried. That was so uncomfortable. Maybe she's not the person that's going to give me this information, but I know that she cares.
Yes.
And I know that she wants this for me.
Yes. And I was really trying to force it. I was like, we can talk about sex. We can talk about these things, but it just in that moment, wasn't happening. And then hopefully by having you in our home, he saw that, well, okay, we can't do it, but I'll always give you someone or give you the tools so that you have the knowledge in your life.
Yeah.
And along those lines, we had something happen in my daughter's class where the parent thought that she was going to be able to stay. And we had to kindly tell her that it was a safe space and that she wasn't able to stay. And she got very upset. How do you manage that? Although I did watch you and you did a wonderful job, but also she was concerned with what was going to be taught and whether you were going to put your values on it or how it was going to be presented. And so how do you manage parents' expectations in terms of that?
Great question. Great question, because parents are the primary educators of all of their children. And there is no place in my teaching that is going to override what a parent says. It is up to that parent to guide that child, to give them that information, and they are their primary educators. Period. End of story. My job is to come in and deliver fact-based, evidence-based, age and developmentally appropriate information for that young person so they can make those healthy decisions. And they may not have the information and they may not even know what the question is that they need to ask. They may say, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I don't know why I'm getting cramps. I don't know what other products to use if I'm getting my period. I don't know what that means when somebody's asking me to do something or pressuring me to do something. They don't know, so that's the beauty of being in a larger group. But if a parent does have concerns, I am always open to having parents call me to discuss what their concerns are. And that, my values are my values. I have them with my own children, but I think I'm pretty centered in giving kids what I think will help them make those better decisions. And they will ultimately make those decisions themselves. But I think, especially in schools or in the private classes, I'll either do a Zoom with parents and have them see, that I don't, like have horns and a tail or something, or meet with them individually, right? And I think it's a little, and I'm thinking of the language now, like this is a safe space. It's not to imply that your home is not a safe space or with a parent is not a safe space, but that it's a safe space for the kid to be able to ask any question that they have without getting in trouble or without wondering if this is the wrong question to ask, that somehow morally, ethically, whatever that kid is asking, the parents are going to, think that it belongs in some other place. And like, oh my God, why is my kid asking that? Like, does that mean this or does that mean that? Right. So that's the only thing I mean by a safe space.
And it truly was a safe space, because in that same class, it ended up coming out that these boys were using very inappropriate language towards the girls. It was sexual harassment. And you were able to empower them to go to an adult or find another adult because they felt like the adults were not listening to them.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that was happening. And I'm pretty in tune, especially with my daughter, just because she talks more than my son does. And I still didn't know that. So all those girls got that information in a safe space to then take it and empower them to not tolerate that behavior towards them.
In this whenever I do a series, whether it's a series of 3 sessions, 5 sessions, could be even, in some schools, I had up to 33 sessions, right? That one of the first things that we also want to teach our young people is what are their rights, just as a human in this world, right? Even if they're under 18, right? What are their rights? But also, equally important is what are their responsibilities. And the responsibility to treat each other with respect, with the language that we use, with the actions that we have, that most of those deviant behaviors are learned. So if somebody is bullying or somebody is harassing another person, that they've learned it, they've gotten a giggle or a laugh from it, or, the other kids in the class are, like, oh my gosh, that was funny, whatever it is, that's not okay. Right? And most people know, and especially young people know that doesn't feel good. Right? And to trust those instincts. They may not be able to define it exactly like that was sexual harassment, right? They may just say, you know what? I didn't like that. That made me feel ashamed, or that made me feel sad, or that, made me go to the bathroom and cry, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know what to call it because nobody's sticking up for me, right? So to be able to call a thing, right? Yeah. Be able to say, that's not okay. We don't get to do that. We don't get to make, I have 5 things that I always say are off the table completely. Like, because kids need a few, rules and boundaries. Yes. And so I say, their race, their religion, their sexual orientation, anything to do with their body. So how tall they are, how short they are, if they have breasts or not, or how big their shoe size is, or if they can jump or not, and then an ability. So a disability. So if somebody has a lisp, if somebody has a reading, learning difference, off the table. Just off the table, because those are things that you cannot change about yourself. And those deserve the utmost respect, because that is who that human is.
Right. Yeah. And now with the state of, the world, and even the schools and social media, and how we're getting a little bit away from kindness at the helm. Yeah. How do you weave that into your classes in terms of leading with kindness and teaching the kids, aside from the topics that you teach? Yeah. How do we do that? How do we... Yeah.
Well, one of the things, so it's starting with the ground rules. Yeah. And one of the ground rules is respect, but that can sort of be a nebulous term, I think, sometimes. And so we really try to break that down. What does that mean? What does it mean to respect somebody? And so they'll have some great answers. It means that I listen, or it means that they also listen, or that we take turns, or that, I'm not putting down somebody because they don't know something, right? So understanding how that feels. But also one of the activities that we do in our healthy relationships is, we read a story about what it means to be, what are some qualities of a healthy relationship? What's okay? What are they willing to do or not? And in the story, how far is somebody willing to go for another person, or would they think of those actions in the story? And then we identify the qualities of a healthy relationship. So it can be kindness, listening, respect, for healthy relationships, no put downs, reciprocating, showing up, good sense of humor, all those things. And then for unhealthy relationships, of course, any type of abuse, just period, end of story, is just a no-go. But put downs, or you're afraid of your partner's temper, or anything like that. So they recognize that. And then the culminating, sort of takeaway is, how do you feel in a healthy relationship? And how do you feel in an unhealthy relationship? You feel safe. You feel heard. You feel listened to. You feel calm. You feel like you can be yourself. And in an unhealthy relationship, you feel afraid. You feel sad. You feel like you can't speak up. You feel like sometimes you just don't know or you don't fit, right? So recognizing those feelings and learning from them and trusting yourself and trusting that you deserve to feel that way. That is your right to feel good.
And that is huge. I think these kids, they don't trust themselves very often.
Yeah.
And it's a learned thing where, that little voice inside of you, that means something.
It does.
And you need to listen to it and, don't put it on the shelf or don't, think about what everyone else is telling you to feel.
Yeah.
And the class was just another adult who they trusted, telling them to trust that little voice inside of them and that they are good and that they are kind. And so I really, really appreciated you being part of our family during that journey. One of my secret loves is skincare. I absolutely cherish the 20 minutes of quiet time I have in the morning when my kids are still asleep and my husband leaves for work. I wash my face and apply my skincare while listening to podcasts, music, mantras, and sometimes just in silence. It is the little bit of me time before the hectic day starts. eCosmetics offers the best in beauty from the biggest names in beauty, all in one place. They have great prices, exceptional service, free shipping, and 100% satisfaction guarantee. I love being able to find my favorites all in one place. Something that is also super important to me is when I shop brands that I buy from a brand that believes in helping others and impacting communities. eCosmetics participates in charitable efforts through the platform Good Shop, where a portion of the purchases made through their site contributes to various causes. This allows customers to support charities while shopping for beauty products. If you are looking for a one-stop shop for all of your beauty needs, you should check out eCosmetics. Use my code SAVVY25, that's SAVVY25 at checkout for 25% off. I'll also provide links in the show notes. Being a health educator is what you do for work, but what also fills your heart is your charity work with the Wig Exchange.
Yeah.
So can you tell the listeners what the Wig Exchange is and what you do there?
So the Wig Exchange is, we provide wigs for women undergoing chemotherapy or other hair loss related illnesses. And it was actually started in New York by Sandy Sandberg, who's a great friend of mine, and Soul Riders. And we are the West Coast arm of that. And although we don't provide all the services that they do, we provide wigs to women at no charge. Of course, we will take donations, but my partner, Martina Scanlon, and we started it. We were volleyball moms, and, I know that she's a cancer survivor. I've had cancer. And I just said, hey, would you do this with me? And so I said, there's no pay.
Yeah, no.
There's no pay, but I have this opportunity and I'd really like to do it with somebody who's also been on this journey.
Yes.
And the way that we feel about it is that, and this is what I tell my kids too, is that doing community service or paying something forward is probably one of the most fulfilling things in the world that's going to keep you connected to not only humanity, but the goodness of other people, right? That we want to, like when my kids were growing up, we'd take them to the food bank and I would say, here's the key. We think we're doing something for somebody else, but in reality, it actually makes us feel really good and it makes us feel connected to the world.
Absolutely.
And so paying it forward. And the Wig Exchange, we have 1,500 wigs.
Wow.
We're in Oakland, and we have new and gently used wigs. And we have them all donated from stores who are going out of business or from companies that are going out of business. Like I just got 19 boxes of hair pieces that were brand new because somebody was simply going out of business. But we're right near Children's Hospital in Oakland. And so people can call us or go on our website, make an appointment, and they come in and they can take, one or a couple of wigs, whatever is, they want to try on, at no cost, because often insurance won't pay or they have a $500 deductible. And so it's just a little piece of the journey of this cancer journey, just to make it a little bit easier. So it just takes one thing off the table, because often these wigs are anywhere between $500 and $1,500, maybe even more than that. And so if we can provide that for someone going through this journey, it can change. They can, pay their rent, or they can, buy those medicines that they need, or, just do something nice for themselves, and they don't have to worry about the cost of a high quality wig. So,
I mean, that's just makes my heart so happy that you do that, and that you have taken this painful moment in your life, having cancer, and paid it forward in terms of helping other people at their lowest. And, a wig probably also helps self-esteem for these women. I mean, I can't imagine losing my hair, and many of them do, if not all of them do. And, you're not only sick, but now you look sick.
Yeah. And to get all of that attention from someone else, even if you're just going to drop your child off at school. We've had a lot of young women, which is kind of shocking.
So sad.
Recently, just who are all part of this young survivor cancer group. And we just gave, just a young mom, a couple of baseball caps and a couple of wigs. I said, this is for when you have to go to work or be on Zoom. And this is for when you need to go run to the grocery store, so that you don't get those stares and you don't have to explain it, because you're already so tired. And just what you were saying, just it's something that they can take pride, or they can just say, I don't feel like answering this today, or don't want those stares. And so let me just throw this on, so I also don't have to think about this in this journey. It's hard enough.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
What value do you think that the Wig Exchange brings to your life?
Oh, I will say I'm always just, I'm so touched that I can hear these people's story. And these women come in and share their most intimate moments when they were diagnosed, what the prognosis is, what are they looking for, what would they like, and more importantly, like, how do they see themselves, and how can we help them to keep that sense of self-esteem? So it always ends in a hug.
Yeah. I'd probably be crying, like bawling my eyes out, trying to keep it together.
And it's just a little piece on this journey. If we can just make it a little easier. And I feel like, even in health education or anything, like just this journey of parenthood, this journey of any kind of illness, this journey that we're all on, we're so much more similar than we are different. And that when we tap into the kindness piece, right? I think that kind of is an aha moment for me. Like it is kindness, that you just know that somebody's feeling something, or is uncomfortable, or feeling vulnerable. And what can we do to support that person? And if I'm in a position to be able to support you, I'm going to do everything that I can.
And selfishly, we do get so much out of it.
Yeah.
Like that helper's high, that they say that you get when you are doing this work.
Yeah.
I experience it all the time in my work with Party and Kindness, and I'll be with all different populations of people who need help. And when I can help them, I just want other people to experience that, because it lasts way longer than buying something or, anything materialistic, which we all have and we all need all those things. But really, this is that piece of your life that brings this pure joy. And sharing that with your kids. And I try, all the time to share it with my kids, because I want them to grow up to be someone like you and hopefully most of the time someone like me.
Can I share a story though that was one of the most touching, and it involves party and kindness?
Oh, okay.
And
yes,
so
I love that.
I went to
Go right ahead.
I went to Summit, a young mom, and she did not speak English, nor did the daughter. And so she was this young 13-year-old. And so I went and she was returning to school, and she had just been through 6 weeks of chemo and she wanted very long hair. And so I brought her, 6 different choices, and she chose a few and felt really comfortable. And then I gave her afterwards. So that was, it's incredibly fulfilling so that somebody, actually finds a wig that makes them feel, this looks like my hair. Yeah. And it makes them feel beautiful. But at 13, she was so into makeup. And so I gave her one of your, the Party and Kindness was filled with all just this gorgeous makeup. Yeah. I don't think I ever saw her smile as big as she did when she was, when she was like, this is all for me. Yeah. And I said, yes, it is. And so it was just those little things, they really do make a difference.
They matter.
They matter.
It's really that one small act of kindness that anyone can do. Really, most of the people that are around me can go to CVS and buy a little makeup that would make this little girl's day. Yeah. And it's all kinds of things. I mean, and it just takes a little bit, like just a little more, a small amount of money can make a huge impact in the lives of other people. Yeah. And I feel blessed that I get to see those things happen. And I'm sure you do too. But there are so many ways for everyone listening to get involved in your organization, mine. I mean, there's so many where they'll be able to experience this and get their kids involved, and they grow up to be, giving adults.
And that giving back is a way to feel part of that larger community, that's the connection.
Yes.
And it can happen in so many different ways, but that is one of the keys.
Yeah. Right? And with all the young people that you teach and, my kids, and, I think we've lost a little bit of being part of a community because of social media and maybe isolation during COVID.
I agree.
And giving back is a way to kind of bring that back into your life. Like go and volunteer and be around people you don't know.
Get out of your comfort zone or get out of your daily routine, right? Because something good is going to happen.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So where do you think this selflessness that you have in you comes from?
Ooh,
because that is not everyone is as selfless. Yeah. Even in the work you do, yes, you get paid for that, but it's so genuinely delivered. It's so thoughtfully delivered. And, I know how hard you work because you're at my house at a Sunday night, like teaching these kids. And then you start the Wig Exchange out here in San Francisco. You didn't have to do that. You could have just donated some wigs and called it a day, so.
I think with young people, I've unfortunately seen so many young people who did not have the answers or weren't able to ask those questions or weren't able to access resources, right? That a clinic was right down the street from them, or they could have gotten mental health services, or they could have had access to reproductive services, and they didn't know that. And so the absence of knowledge, I think for me, and that fork in the road when, which is what we always want to avoid, for young people, or what we want to help guide them through that fork in the road to trust themselves and to make that a healthier decision. I think that's the key. And I think for me, knowing that if somebody just paid a little bit of attention or somebody just paid it forward a little bit or somebody just made that more accessible, that can make all the difference in a young person's life. You don't need to go out with that older, boy or man, that's not the truth what he's telling you. Trust your instincts. And if you're a little bit afraid or you're, like those major decisions need a little guidance.
And they do, really and truly, because I'll tell you a funny story. So I was dropping Noah off at high school for his first day. And he wanted to get dropped off. There's a park near the high school with his friends to walk in. So I wasn't driving him and dropping him off in front, of course, because, it's so not cool.
Because he's high schooler.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's getting out of the car and I'm like, okay, well, you're at a park. Like, people are going to offer you drugs and like, you need to, be strong. And he's like, Mom, I have Narda. And I'm like, what? He's like, Narda taught me all of this, Mom. And I'm like, okay. And you know what? And I like this calm came over me and I'm like, that's right. She gave you all of this power, all of this knowledge, and you carry that with you. Yeah. And they truly do. And when you think, oh, they took the class and they forget. When he was just like, I got Narda. I'm like, oh, great. Okay,
we did a lot of role plays, but peer pressure is very real. And what can you even say? And so it's, it's that fight or flight when you are afraid, what do you do? At any age, really, you want to either stay or do something, or sometimes we freeze, right? Yes. And so to be able to just say, no thanks, or reverse the pressure, or, we do a lot of skills.
No, I know. He was like, oh, Narda taught me all this, Mom. Like, we're good. Have a nice day.
I'm throwing a lot of stuff at them.
No, I mean, that's what we pay for, but also like, that's the type of person that you are. You're not just doing the job to do it. Right? And they clearly think they have the
hopefully
answer.
I mean, it doesn't mean that it will always work, but it does mean that they can trust themselves and that they can also just say, not sure about this, like, let me get back to you, right? Or, and I mean, ultimately, and we said this, before, is that what we want is for our kids to feel good, that, for their body, their brain, their heart to align, that we just want them to feel good about who they are, what body they're in, the changes that are happening, and who they choose to be with, and the decisions that they make. I mean, that's as much as we can do as a parent.
And that's what I truly want for my child, both my children, is to be as authentic to who they are and trust themselves. And, I'll just put every person that is like you around them so that hopefully they get stuff from me. But takes a village. It takes a village, not only when we give back to our community, but within our families to try to raise them to be the best them that we can. So I could talk to you all day. I really could. I could chat all day. But as the podcast is coming to an end, I always ask my guests these 3 questions. Yeah. So what does it mean to you to be a community change maker?
What does it mean to be a community change maker? It means that you are having a positive impact in your community. And whether it's a small thing, like you're picking up garbage, or you are helping an old person, put their groceries in their car or bringing it to their home, or you're taking the time to really talk to young people in a way that is, evidence-based and knowledge-based, and saying, hey, I care about you and I see you and I want you to have a healthy, positive impact in the world as well. And I see you and I care about you.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that message because I don't think they hear that as much. I mean, I tell them, and I hope most parents do, but they need other people to tell them too.
Well, and
to
I think,
recognize it.
I think we also need to reframe how we look at young people. I think a lot of young people are looked at as, oh, you're about to do something bad, or what's wrong, or what are you going to do? Or if a group of young boys is walking down the street, what are they going to do? Or I'm afraid of them, or, but the reality is that's our future, right? Yes. And so to empower them, and again, what are their responsibilities in the world, and what are the things that they actually get to enjoy?
Yes, I know. It's been hard giving him those little freedoms, but that he deserves them, and that he's going to make good choices. Yes. He makes some bad choices, but he's going to make good choices.
But there are bumpers up and there are rails up so that we can catch them.
That's right.
Right? And that, I mean, bringing it back to social media a little bit, I think that's one of the harms of social media is that we're not allowed to make mistakes without it being recorded, or, that memory. What for us, we could just go, whew, gosh, thank God nobody saw me fall. Or thank God, nobody saw me, like,
back in the day in the club.
Back in the day, right? Yeah, I was going to say, be throwing up over here or do something bad over there, But that one of the issues with social media is that it's then recorded and you can never get rid of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a shame because we're allowed to make mistakes and we're allowed to say, gosh, I didn't really know then, or gosh, I'm glad I was able to move through that, or learned a really good lesson from that one. Yes. Remind me not to do that again.
Not doing that again.
Not doing that. Yeah. So I think that's one of also, to me, one of the downfalls.
Yeah. That's so scary.
Yeah.
How do you envision the ripple effect of kindness manifesting in this amazing community you've built with the Wig Exchange?
I think when you know better, you do better. Yeah. And I think when you pay it forward, it only has a positive effect. Mm-hmm. That it can't have anything but that.
I agree.
Right? It just is that simple.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it is that simple.
It really is.
I really hope that through my journey with the podcast and with Party and Kindness that I am an example of how simple this can be, really, and be a guiding light to people to show them that it is not hard and the impact and the reward is vast and great.
It is. And it is. And I would say with Party and Kindness, like it just is the simplest, most benign act. Oh, let me just pick up a few extra lotions or a few extra pairs of socks, right? But when that woman is going into chemotherapy, like those socks are going to make that day so much better because she's not going to be cold or her lips are not going to be chapped. Like it's just that simple. It really is simple. It's so simple.
Can you share with our listeners where they can find you and how they can get involved with the Wig Exchange?
Oh, thank you. So for my services as a health educator, it's teenhealtheducator.com. And that is my website. And you can reach me through that. And it gives you sort of a breakdown of, who I am, the classes that I teach. And I have a lot of blogs on there, just information for
They're
parents.
Amazing, by the way. I read them every time they come through.
That's
so
great.
sign up on her website because the topics are amazing and they just seem to pop up when I really need them.
That's great. That's great. I love writing them. And I'll also share resources from, from other folks that I think should be highlighted. So that's a plus. And then the Wig Exchange is simply wigexchange.org. And so you can donate. We're having a fundraiser on October 20th at JBJ here in Walnut Creek.
Oh, I love
I know.
her.
Jill is just amazing. And so that's October 20th. And so we're just a small organization. We have our little office. We're 100% volunteer. And so any financial donations, but also we take wigs that are new and gently used. We will get them professionally cleaned and then put them, in our supply for women to choose from.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
I love it so much. I'm so grateful that you spent time to talk with me today and share your story with our listeners.
Thank you.
I wanted to leave you all with 3 tips from the episode today. So you can start tomorrow and get involved in your community and reap the benefits of all the things that Narda shared today. So one is, I'd say, sit in silence or solace and think about what's important to you and find an organization that's mission mirrors that. Second, I'd say start small, like give one item, like Narda mentioned, 1 hour of your time, $1 of your money. It makes a huge difference. And then third, I'd say follow a friend. So everybody knows Narda. No, everybody knows a Narda. Like really, no, in their life, you know somebody who this comes very natural to. And they can teach you. So follow them, ask them, use them as a resource. Volunteer with them, donate with them, and then it will become second nature in your own life. So, Narda, you can get involved with the Wig Exchange and make a tax-deductible donation. I hope that you will. Or new items. You guys collect a lot of new items that these women can use as well. So follow her and you can help her in doing that. So Narda, thank you so much. You're truly an inspiration to me and to everyone listening.
And you too. I'm going to just say right back at you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope it sparks a desire in you to dedicate even a small slice of your life to uplifting others. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow me on Instagram at SavvyGivingGal. You can also visit my website at SavvyGivingGal.com. Let's spread positivity together.